Today we're looking at some enterprise 3Com ATM networking gear. These huge things would have been deployed in multi-floor or multi-building network configurations as backbones. We'll learn what ATM is, get a closer look at all the modules in these things. We might take on some damage, some self-inflicted, some directly from the factory, apparently, and try getting some Windows XP machines networked up with this gear over ATM with some Fore Systems ATM PCI cards from the mid-90s. One of the machines is going to be a Dell laptop attached to this massive dock, which actually lets you put a PCI card inside of it. Do you ever buy something and think, what am I doing? Let's get into it. This is a huge pile of 3Com ATM networking gear. ATM stands for Asynchronous Transfer Mode and was becoming a very in vogue networking approach in the mid-1990s. On the left, we've got a CoreBuilder 7000 ATM switching chassis, fully packed with all sorts of modules inside we'll go over. I picked this up on eBay quite some time ago. I think maybe I covered it in a Patreon video, but I've never powered it up, and we'll do that today. Over on the right, I've got a CELLPlex 7000. Cards have been pulled for shipping. You can see a massive backplane down in there. And of course, plenty of interesting modules that we're going to go over. Side note, 3Com had the best names for their stuff. This is another switch that I've got, the SuperStack 2 Net Builder. I mean, SuperStack? Come on. But back over to the CELLPlex, a viewer named Matt sent this to me for the cost of shipping, which came out to well over 100 because these things are quite heavy, as you can imagine. Here's my hand, it's pretty large. That's why all the cards are wrapped up for separate shipping. These cards all stacked up together are as heavy or maybe even heavier than this chassis itself. It's a full metal chassis. And it was so weird, when I unpackaged this thing, my cats were utterly obsessed with it. I could not keep them away from it. And so I was telling Matt about that, and sure enough, they also have a cat. This is Aurora. So that explains that. I was really just hoping my cats were super into ATM networking. We've got all these module boards here. I don't even know everything I've got. I'm going to get them unwrapped. But first, I'd like to give you an overview of ATM networking to hopefully illustrate why this stuff is so interesting. The internet and networks today largely use Ethernet, which uses a connectionless, packet-switched delivery strategy. The data you want to send, say this image, is broken down into separate, uniquely identified packets. These packets aren't necessarily always the same size. They are sent out over the network and can take many different paths to their destination independently. When they arrive on the other end, they are reassembled back into the correct order. ATM, however, is connection-oriented. Data is still broken down in a similar way, but this time into what ATM calls cells of a fixed length, always 5 bytes of identification header and 48 bytes of data, hence the cell in the CELLPlex 7000 name, I imagine. A connection between the sender and receiver is established across the network. ATM calls this a virtual circuit, and these cells are sent using that same connection in order. This is very similar to the way a traditional telephone system would work. When you pick up the phone and dial, traditionally, equipment would form a physical link between your phone and whoever you were calling. ATM follows the same basic strategy. And this stuff we've got on the table is some serious no-joke enterprise and ISP grade ATM gear, as you'll see. When it was new back in 1995, this CELLPlex would have set you back between $15,000 and $40,000 US in 1995 money. A quick note about the naming: the CELLPlex 7000 came out around 1995 and in fact was actually developed by a company called Nicecom, which 3Com acquired. There's actually a really cool story written by the Nicecom folks about this, including a picture of the original fax the 3Com CEO sent over to begin acquisition discussions in 1994. 3Com acquired them for their ATM gear and rebranded this thing to the 3Com CELLPlex 7000. The other unit I have is obviously very physically similar, the CoreBuilder 7000. Both are advertised as ATM switches, and I see magazine articles from roughly the same era about both of them, so my best guess is the CoreBuilder name is a rebrand of the CELLPlex name to make it more generic and get that ATM-specific cell reference out of there. As you'll see, these things can also accept Ethernet switching modules, so maybe 3Com was trying to make sure you knew that this thing could do more than ATM. But that's just a guess on my part. Let me know if you know more about the product line naming down in the comments. We're going to set this CoreBuilder aside for now and get this thing all racked up with its cards. I was just going to unwrap all these and throw them in there, but I quickly realized it was going to be a shame not to at least show you a few of them. This is the first one I unwrapped, and they're really impressive. This one happens to be a 3 ATM and 12 Ethernet CP7200 module. And we've got the 12 Ethernet ports right here, of course, that we're all familiar with. Not sure what speed those are. and then 3 ATM links. ATM was almost always over fiber. These are fiber ports. ATM had a bunch of different speed specifications. This one is OC3, Optical Carrier 3. This would have been like 155 megabits per second. That's a pretty common speed for ATM, I believe. But that's making me realize my CoreBuilder 7000 is pretty decked out. It's got these OC12 ATM ports. OC12 would have been like 622 megabits per second. That is no joke in the 90s. But I'm getting distracted. I have so much to cover and explore here. I don't really know a lot about any of this stuff. Let's take another closer look at this one. Look at all the bodge wires going on this thing. A bodge wire or a bodge is a fix that a human has to apply after the board has been produced. So like automated machines and robots are laying all this other stuff out and soldering it and placing the chips and everything. And then a human comes back, and I've never seen anything like this. We've got capacitors coming off this chip, resistors or maybe diodes over here, and they're not all the same. Some of them don't have the same bodge. Man, and then the more you look, the worse it gets. There's some bodging going on these chips. There's some right here. You know, a lot of production mistakes were made. This was probably very expensive. Next up, we've got this 16 by 16 switch. It's a single height board, no bodges to show you this time. It's branded CoreBuilder, even though it came with this CELLPlex, so more to my point that they're probably the same thing. Got a 10 base T management port, something called a service port over serial, and a control terminal over serial. Now, I haven't done a whole bunch of reading of the documentation for this thing, but I'm sort of piecing it together just logically as I look at the physical equipment. Remember, this thing said it was a switch. I think these single height guys go in the top. And then this provides the ports. So I think you need these modules that are actually capable of doing the switching, and you provide more and more ports for your network and the rest of your infrastructure with additional cards down here. I'm pretty sure that's how all of this is going to come together. And in fact, so I don't hurt anything, I think we'll try slotting this first one in. Very tight tolerances, apparently, which I suppose is a good thing. So just like that, I think you have these flipped out. Yep. Next up, we've got a very heavy 7600 fast Ethernet card. Looks like 16 10100 Ethernet ports on it. And my little CoreBuilder 7000 badge fell out of the little handle there. I'll have to fix that. Just look at this thing. It's super heavy. Sometimes you just look at something and you know it was very expensive. Daughter boards, riser boards all over the place. It's got this onboard serial on what appears to be the CPU module. The next card is identical to the one I just showed you physically, except for it's fast Ethernet over fiber cables. And this one has a little bit of a water matter on its mystery serial port inside, but the rest of the board looks fine, not too worried about that. The last module card is another fast Ethernet over optical card, but I think this one's older. It's got CELLPlex branding on the pull handle on the right there. Yeah, they're probably the same age. This is the one I was just showing you. This is one of the previous ones that were branded CoreBuilder. And yeah, 3Com loves their bodges. I'm placing all the modules. You hold these pull handles out, and you really have to push like way more than you'd like to get them in. I don't like it. And then each card has 4 of these captive flatheads, which are less than inspiring. They just screw in like that. It's quite a bit of work, actually. I'm just going to leave all those out in case I have to pull these and reseat them or whatever. There's a little bit of an art to it. I'm getting better as I go. So you have all these out, and you apply all your force with your thumb on those, and the card will go in, and they'll kind of come loose like that. And that way you're not pushing on this or trying to push here. I didn't show you as I unwrapped it, but I also have one more of these 16-way switch deals. It doesn't want to go in. Oof, that was not easy. If you worked on these back in the day, do you remember that? I mean, the good tight tolerances are good. Everything's very flush. So, I mean, it's well engineered in that regard, but man, it's a lot of work to get those cards in. Well, I must say, this thing looks pretty sweet when it's all put together. It's got a lot going on. I'm kind of scared to power it up, see what happens. The last time I powered on some 3Com gear, it literally exploded. Ooh, that didn't sound good at all. Did you? I don't know if that came out over the microphone, that cracking noise. Yeah, power fault. We definitely blew a capacitor or something. Oh yeah. I can smell it. 100%. Blew a capacitor. This just got interesting. Let's see which one it was. Ooh, yeah. That is a nice smell of blown capacitor. Is this why Cisco won? Just kidding. Never had a Cisco unit do that. I think it's just those 2 screws. And we're in, and it smells absolutely horrendous. Where is it? I see it. Right by the power connector. Let me zoom you in. Ooh, yeah. We blew up all sorts of stuff. And I'm talking all this ATM, and in this entire CELLPlex chassis, I only have 3 ATM ports. But that's okay. We will get some ATM stuff working one way or the other. And I'm a little perplexed. I'll go read the manual. I don't know the difference between a service port and a control terminal. And the ATM Ethernet card also has its own control terminal. And then these cards are identical. So like, which one do you use? Are they smart enough to find each other, and all of these are doing the same thing? I don't know. I'm going to do a little reading. Sounds like control terminal is what we want. I guess you can boot this thing into a special mode and then attach yourself to the service port and run like batch files against it to put different configuration on or reset it and flash it and stuff. So that's for more like, well, service, as the name implies. A lot going on this thing, but the power supply claims it's only ever going to draw 6 amps. So that shouldn't cause us too many headaches. Let's do it. Manual says 19,200 baud for a control terminal. Okay. Nothing on the terminal yet. It's doing all sorts of startup tests. There we go. Terminal came to life. Most of the lights have settled down. It does not like this fast Ethernet card. It says fail. Maybe I didn't seat it all the way. I can't really tell. There's a little bit of a lip over here. Let's see what the software says. Something about my microphone and the fans on this thing created a really terrible echo that I could not get rid of. So I'm re-recording this after the fact, the audio anyway. I was able to get into the machine over the terminal. The password was admin for the admin user, so that was convenient. And I'm just poking around and looking at failures it's reporting for some of the cards. It actually can only identify the Ethernet ATM combo module at the moment. So what I'm going to do is pull and reseat the other cards. Pulling out the cards and swapping them around. Got this problem child here reseated. Seems fine, but I have bad news. This connector's all messed up. This wasn't even the bad card. I don't know if I did that or shipping. I mean, probably I did it. But yeah, it'd be quite a bit to get in there and fix it. And man, the more I look at these things, there's just bodges everywhere. Got some nice ones right in there. All sorts of stuff going on. This one is my favorite so far. Look at all the wires. Like every single pin on this chip needed a wire bodge to it. A little resistor right here. What in the... It's amazing these things ever worked. We'll power it back up. Sans the one that I probably banged up its connector. The good news is the one I actually care about the most, which is the ATM and Ethernet card, seems to work just fine. Let's see if we can bring this guy back to life. A few moments later, it's still in that module initialization phase, but I'm not seeing any error complaints, even out of our guy that was all over the place before. The thing, of course, makes quite a bit of noise, but it's like pleasant. They're really nice fans. Let me show you without noise canceling. Really not that bad. It's coming back to life. For some reason, the microphone that's above my monitor here that I usually use, combined with those fans, creates this insane, heinous echo. So anyway, we're strapped in. Hopefully this is going to sound okay. It goes through this phase where it says start internal communication with modules, but I feel like it's talking to me because it says still communicating. Please wait. It does have this progress indicator, which is much appreciated. It's nice to know that the thing is actually doing something. It's that takes a solid 5 minutes, I want to say. So previously we had 3, I think, cards failing, and now we just have 1 of them failing. So we have some improvement. The admin user password is admin, which is very convenient. And I find this menuing system very overwhelming to process. It's a hierarchy, of course, so I can say 1 for sys, and it shows me where I'm at, which is actually kind of cool. And then I can go to 5 for interface cards. And again, the hierarchy kind of builds up. And it always spits at the bottom what you can do, which they must have had to do because I was never going to remember that. So dash for back, and then we can get back in. I think you can also just type this thing, IFC. I suppose some people would have done that. Now, it always knew about our Ethernet ATM module, the one we care about, so that's good. And we have some improvement. It sees one of the fast Ethernet modules now. This slot is empty because I banged up the connector. And then this one is failed down. So the one that was giving all those error indicators before, it looks green now, but it still doesn't like it. And then you can do a backslash to get all the way back to the root menu. At this point, I need to do some more research and see what's next. The only thing I read in the manual was you can do this fast setup thing and kind of get it into a state that most people would use it in. Let's try to look at those interface cards. This part's really weird. So it says slot ID 3. I want to learn about this thing. You would think you'd go to interface card 3, but it says interface card is not valid. But if I go to 1, that is apparently my ATM card because it sees 3 OC3 multi-mode fiber ports that are up and enabled, so that's good. For whatever reason, it has a numbering scheme that changes depending on what you're referencing. So there's 6 slots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you saw it was saying there's something in slot 3. But these two up here are for like switch and control modules. And the interface slots start here. So this is interface 1, 2, 3, 4, but it's also slot number 1, 2, 3. Of course, you can reason about it, but why not just always reference them by their absolute physical location? It seems like that would be way simpler. All right, well, I bent the pin on this, or maybe it was already like that, I don't know. That one's not going to work for now. But the ATM Ethernet combo module's working. This one is now working, according to the terminal there. Of course, nothing here. This one is no longer complaining, but the software doesn't like it. I'm not too worried about that. This is the only one we really need anyway. The next step is what to do with all this stuff, how to set up an ATM network. So I'm going to go look into that. Well, I haven't done much research yet, but I was thinking we probably want to get a computer on this thing, see if we can establish a link, an ATM link from a computer to the big CELLPlex over there. I was digging through my stuff. I've been thinking about this ATM network for quite some time and building up the equipment I think I'm going to need. These are some Fore Systems 155 megabit per second ATM network interface cards that you put on like a Windows PC or whatever. These are from 1995. They of course use the optical media here. Specifically, they are some Fore Systems PCI 200 cards. And believe it or not, one of the eBay listings that I got those cards from came with the complete shrink-wrapped drivers. I suppose to reiterate the era we're dealing with, it's got Windows NT with support for the DEC Alpha running Windows NT. That could be a whole video. Windows 95, IBM OS 2, Novell, and Apple Mac OS. I'm going to cheat. I'm just going to try to slap one of these in a Windows XP machine, see what happens. Might not even need the disk. Gonna, again, do no research. You know, sometimes you got to experiment. I should say Fore Systems was probably like the name in ATM back then. I actually have a bit of Fore Systems ATM gear that I've picked up on eBay over the years. This is some sort of modular unit, and I'm missing a lot of modules. And then we've got the Forerunner LE155. I think this is essentially an ATM hub, maybe a switch. You could probably think about it that way. I've been thinking about this ATM video for a long time, and I always imagined I was going to do the Fore Systems stuff, but this CELLPlex kind of fell into my lap, and I already had the CoreBuilder. So I think we're going to try this one first, and if we succeed, we'll try the Forerunner in future videos, or if you're interested in Fore stuff at all, just let me know, and I can do my best to make more videos on this stuff. Got the old trusty ThinkCentre out. This is a Pentium 4 machine. This is my main Windows XP rig. Basically going to slap this in here. You can see I've got the old hard drive floating around. And we're going to hope for the best. Installed. Tuck our hard drive away. Getting everything hooked up, and just for fun, we'll try this complete inbox Crestron VGA to HDMI adapter I just picked up. I briefly tested it so it works. See how that goes. Got everything hooked up so we can get some HDMI out from the VGA on the monitor over here. I didn't test this thing very extensively, but it was working. So power up the ThinkCentre. And if this doesn't work at all, meaning the PCI card on a Windows XP machine. I've got some Windows 95 machines we can mess around with. That was pretty quick. It's doing a pretty good job. It says the resolution up in the upper left. That's coming out from the scaler. Computers love to switch their resolution constantly. And a lot of scalers don't like that. It's a little, there we go. You can do it. Windows XP. Hopefully we see some, like, I don't know, new hardware dialogue. ATM network controller. Down. Look at that. Forerunner PC. I knew XP would be the way to go. Let's pull up device manager. Network adapters. ATM emulated LAN. That might be another video. But the Forerunner PCA 200, it knew. It just, I've got it. It's connected. Okay, this is good. This is good. If nothing else works from now on, at least we know we installed this thing without doing anything. Got a receive and transmit light on this thing. Receive is red. We'll pull out our little rubber thing here. I got to go hunt down some optical cables, fiber cables. Gonna dig through the old network bin here. I'm almost positive I've got some loose fiber cables. Here's some. Do the yellow ones work for this? About to find out. I'm actually fairly certain we want one of these aqua multi-mode fiber cables because it says MM for multi-mode right there. I'm not a fiber expert by any means, as you'll likely find out for the duration of this video, but we'll start with this one. And then we'll get this guy in there. I don't know, I might have to flip that around. We'll see. And then we got to power on the big guy. And all we're hoping for at this point is that either in this software or on these indicators or on the PC, we'll see some indication that a link has been established. The CELLPlex is still booting up, but the red light went away over here. Now there's no LED indicators on the PC. And on our ATM card, where we plugged in the PC to port 1, we have a link status of green on port 1, ATM link status. I don't know. Let's let this thing continue to boot. Over in Windows, the ATM connection is up. It's connected. And the router, presumably the CELLPlex, is talking to the PC. It's probably just some basic chatter they do. And yeah, I don't know how to I don't know what to do now. And there's this ATM ELAN, emulated LAN connection thing, which I was hoping I wouldn't have to learn about. But this is where you actually specify like the TCP/IP stuff if you wanted to use TCP/IP. And it's complaining that there's an unspecified ELAN name. So I don't really know what to do about that. On the console port of the CELLPlex, and I guess we'll look at stats, ATM layer stats, stats per port, and it wants a port number slot dot port. That card, the ATM card, is in slot 3, and I'm plugged into port 1. Yeah. Okay, so cells are flowing between the machines, but I wouldn't say I have a network. It's like a LAN emulation. The service. Oh boy. This is going to be like a lot more involved than I was hoping. I'm going to I keep saying this, I'm going to go do some research. Actually, things are getting interesting. Once the CELLPlex fully booted, this ATM emulated LAN connection thing came to life, and it was given an IP. It is on a network, which is pretty interesting. This must be what the router is. This thing a router? Do you call it that? Anyway, it's giving out IP addresses. I think we need more computers. Okay, I do have a couple of fully functional, healthy Windows 95 machines. I've also got the drivers for one of these PCI cards for Windows 95. But I've got those real dialed in right now for a token ring network, yet another networking approach. And I just don't want to mess with them, and I really don't want to mess with Windows 95 right now. We know Windows XP works just fine with these Fore Systems ATM PCI cards. So we're going to use this Dell laptop. This is a Latitude D610, which is absolutely appropriate for Windows XP. That's what this would have shipped with. I got this laptop basically for the cost of shipping from the folks over at Free Geek Twin Cities, so a huge thanks to them. It's currently running the Hannah Montana Linux distribution, and they threw in something else with it. A very interesting dock. It seems like a normal, if not overly too large, laptop docking station that you'd put in right there and get some peripherals off the back. The usual suspects, a NIC, modem, some video input output. But look at this big slot right here. You can install a PCI card in this dock, and it gets passed through on the PCI bus over to the laptop. So I'm going to get Windows XP installed on this thing. We'll hook it up to the dock and throw one of these ATM cards in it. Windows XP install appears to be going fine so far. So let's get our PCI card thrown in here. I had previously taken this little door off, and there seems to be another one over here. Looks like maybe it's attached with a normal PCI, as a normal PCI bracket. Let's see. Take that screw off. Actually, there's a very flimsy little plastic tab right there that I think you push in. Yeah. Then it looks like maybe it just pries off. Yep. Hopefully this thing is gonna fit in here. I think so. Yeah. I think it's in. Get that screw in there just for good measure. Probably not what the folks over at Fore or Dell had in mind. But that's the beauty of standards. So far so good on the Windows XP install over here. Did anyone else used to put the mouse like right where the progress bar is and then you walk away? Yeah. You come back, see how far you've made it. Oh yeah, we've got speakers. Such a banger. The Windows XP install has succeeded, but a Mickey Mouse sized wrench has been thrown in my plans this evening. When you plug the laptop into the dock provides all the power, and its power cable is one of these Mickey Mouse style things. I don't know if that's the technical term, but that's what I call them. And I don't have one of those. I have this, which is so close. Why do I have this? But through the power of Amazon Prime, I've got one of these on the way. Should be here tomorrow, and we'll pick up where we left off tomorrow night. It's the next evening, and I believe we are back in business. Yep. Let me get this situated so I can see what the screen's doing. I've never used this, but I plugged it in just now, and I see an amber indicator on the power switch. So we'll get the laptop on there. When you dock the laptop, we can see the battery indicators going off. Its battery is, of course, bad, so it's unhappy. But this big eject button, this mechanical eject button that spits the laptop off, actually illuminates. I didn't even realize that was a light. I'm guessing we can just power it on from here. Yep, that's good. Windows XP booting up. This poor thing could do with a SSD swap. I think that's the original IDE spinning Rust hard drive. Hopefully we get some unidentified hardware notifications over here. The red LED indicator on the card is on just like last time, but I'm not seeing new devices. Okay. Weird. This one does not have the drivers built in. I'm pretty sure it's the same image of Windows XP. You know what? I bet I ran a bunch of updates on that other computer. Well, let me remember what that tool's called. Okay, I was doing some research, and while I was doing it, it found it. So I think this hard drive is really slow. You can see it's refreshing, trying to get it installed. And it did. Oh, it's installing everything in the dock, the USB devices and everything. Yeah, it's going to town. Okay, I think we're in good shape. Got another fiber cable we're going to plug into the second port here, and if this works, I'll explain a little bit about what I think this thing is doing and why I'm getting IPs and stuff. And then way down in here, get plugged in to the Dell, and we'll fire it back up. It's not fully booted up, but same story so far. This is port 2, and we have a physical link established on port 2. If this works and I get an IP, we'll fire this one up. What I'm really hoping is this thing has been configured to share a LAN between these ports, and I won't really have to mess with it. So just like before, this ATM connection comes to life right when the CELLPlex is turned on. When it's fully booted, this ATM ELAN connection comes to life. And if we go take a look and see if we've got an IP, we have been assigned an IP over the ELAN. The emulated LAN connection, it's at 169.254.63, which is slightly different. The ThinkCentre got 169.254.185. A slightly different network. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on. ATM has something called LAN emulation, or LANE. And this lets you simulate LAN activity over a physical ATM link. So it travels with those cells I was explaining earlier in the video. But as far as your client is concerned, it's using an Ethernet network. This thing can run services to provide LAN emulation, and clearly it's been previously set up as a LAN emulation server. I knew I was going to have to get to this point to probably do anything interesting. Now you can find some applications that can do some native networking, like NetBIOS stuff, over an ATM link, which I'd like to explore in future videos. But this LAN emulation stuff is kind of what people do. It's so funny, in the documentation they'll call it support for legacy LAN networks. But if I was a betting man, I would say LAN actually kept ATM more relevant for longer because you could do your LAN stuff over it. At any rate, we're going to power up the ThinkCentre, and hopefully this thing has been configured to allow routing between those two networks on these two links. It's very possible that's not the case. Well, let's find out. The ThinkCentre is up, and you can see it's got this 169.254.185.25 address that the CELLPlex has given it. I'm not holding my breath, but we're going to ping the laptop and see if they've been set up to route, and of course they have not. Ooh, this is interesting though. I'm pinging the ThinkCentre from this laptop, and apparently that route has been set up. It could talk to the ThinkCentre. What? I've been messing around with the CELLPlex, and I did learn a little bit more about how to navigate it. So you can see at this bottom piece here, it's saying equals 0 to go to the switch, or equals N, N being a interface card number. So I can actually say, well, I should say I'm on the switch right now. The one right below it is just for redundancy reasons. So I'm controlling switch 0, and this is its menu. Now I can say equal 1 to go to the interface card with the 3 ATM ports we've been looking at. And check this out. You get a menu. I was dicking around. There we go. You get a menu for that card with the Ethernet ports and the ATM ports, and you can configure it separately, and you go back and forth like this. So if I say equal 0, I'm back at the switch module main menu, equal 1 to get to the card. Really interesting. So you can see in here, it's got all sorts of LAN emulation stuff, ATM resources. I can't get anything useful out of this. So if I go to like LAN emulation clients, it says I can go to display, and then I have to choose a bridge. It took a while to figure this out. Bridge 1 are the Ethernet ports, and bridge 2 is the ATM. So I'm gonna say 2. And yeah, it spits out some stats and stuff, but I really don't know what I'm looking at. We can go to configuration information. Same deal. The ATM bridge. These are what ATM addresses look like. It's talking a little bit about virtual circuits. We've got some ELAN called this. Yeah, this is going to take a lot of research. I was just noticing there's this management thing though. Let's go in here. Administer IP display. This is slightly interesting, I guess. These are not the IP addresses being given out by this thing though. Here I'm at the switch again. I couldn't tell you anything about this. Let's look at the network topology. I can look at all the ELANs. I can do the types and parameters. I don't see anything in here about a DHCP server serving up those IP addresses. I'm gonna look around a little more. I can't figure that out. I don't know where the IPs are coming from. I don't know how to do routing on this thing. However, I did get iPerf on both of these. Over on the ThinkPad, I'll start an iPerf server. iPerf is a tool that lets you measure network speeds. And over here, I'm going to start it up in client mode and point it at the ThinkCentre and see what we get. We're getting 3 megabits per second. What? Not quite our advertised 155. And the server saw all that as well. It also came out at a average of like 2.63 megabits per second. That's kind of boring. Interesting to know, I guess, even though we've got these OC3 155 megabit uplinks and 155 megabit PCI cards, we're only getting like 3 megabit. That's kind of whack. I have an insane amount of learning to do about ATM, but I do want to power up this big dog real quick. I can't really use it in any productive way. These OC12 ports, I don't have any other gear to plug into this stuff other than themselves, but let's boot it up and see if it works, see if we can see the console. I would argue that it's louder than the other one, actually. I want like 5 of these all racked up in a single rack. Wouldn't that look sweet? It came up totally healthy. I'll show you the terminal in a minute. And I suppose we have nothing to lose for science. We'll throw the ThinkCentre on there just to see what happens. Nothing at all. We've got this red middle RX light. Every port looks like that. Maybe they're administratively down, not enabled. And we get no link status over here. Let's go mess with the configuration software. The admin password was also admin on this one. That must be a default. Let's look at platform config. Let's look at our interface cards. And yeah, it knows about these 622 megabit per second cards. Let's look at the first one. It does think that port I'm plugged into is up and enabled though. It's very possible that I can't actually plug a 622 megabit port into my 155 megabit card. Maybe they're not backwards compatible. I think we don't have anything to lose by running through the fast setup on this one. Let's just see what it's like. It complains and says, would you like to reset factory defaults? And I can't choose yes, so I'll just choose no. Whatever. This is a nightmare. Look at all this stuff. Network prefix. I can't press backspace on this terminal emulator. I don't know. Look how much stuff you have to know about all of this. Here we go. A management IP. That's cool. We're going to reboot. I just accepted all the defaults. It really wants to make sure you're ready to reboot. There it goes. That was probably not a good idea to plug that faster speed fiber. I got my little caps on, by the way. Don't worry. Into this slower card. That can actually cause damage, maybe. So, in hindsight, it's obvious that was never going to work. One last experiment I'd like to try. I'm powering the CELLPlex back up. Let's plug in the ThinkCentre machine over the Ethernet port and see if it's configured to do anything. We immediately have a link light. That's good. I had a feeling. Check this out. I just plugged this machine into that Ethernet port and I got an IP. It's, again, on a different subnet than the laptop, but let's try to ping the laptop just for fun. Nope. Same behavior. Over on the laptop, let's try to ping the desktop. And we can. So we still have that direction of routing going on. But this time it's from the laptop over a direct ATM link over to Ethernet on the ThinkCentre. One more final test. You probably noticed the switches have this 10 base T Ethernet management port on them. The manual says you connect up a computer running the Transcend software that 3Com provided. As far as I could tell, the Transcend software was free and you could download it back in the day. But unfortunately, where they were hosting it wasn't scraped. It was on an FTP server. So if you have that Transcend management software, let me know. I would love to mess around with it. But we're going to get the ThinkCentre plugged in here. I went into the management info and found what is supposedly the management IP address. Over here, I've got this thing on the same network. I also fixed the aspect ratio on my monitor here. I had to use a crossover cable to do this direct connection. I did see mention of pinging in the manual, and yeah, it looks like we can talk to it. What I'm real curious about is if it's hosting some sort of web interface. Doesn't look like it. I had a feeling it wasn't. I didn't see any mention of an integrated sort of management software on the card itself. I think you need a separate program to talk to it. Ooh, check this out though. We can telnet. I can telnet to that. Oh no. I forget telnet is very slow. Yeah, look, we're controlling it. Okay, so the management is working. This is pretty sweet. Probably could have done it that way this whole time instead of having this ridiculously loud thing in the room with me. Well, this actually went a lot better than I had imagined it would. We technically did get an ATM network going on this CELLPlex 7000 over here. I went into this with some basic high-level academic knowledge of how ATM works and what it is, but no hands on the keyboard actually configuring ATM gear. I still don't have that knowledge, as you saw. Basically just lucked out that this thing was already configured to do something, and I can't even get in there and figure out how to edit it or alter the configuration. So I have a lot of homework to do, but I'm glad we got this thing working. ATM has been very daunting. As you could see, just looking through those menu systems, it's quite complicated. Maybe complicated isn't the right word. It's sophisticated, and you need to know a lot to be able to do anything with it. I will build up that knowledge. I've got lots of gear I'd like to explore. In fact, I've got some Cisco ATM port adapters for some very large 7200 series routers I'd like to get all hooked up. Everything I've got is that slower OC3 speed though, so I'll have to hunt down some of that fast OC12 gear to use in that CoreBuilder. I don't really know where I'm going to take it from here, other than you will be seeing all this stuff again, and we'll try to get like the CELLPlex and the CoreBuilder talking to each other. I might have to get some different cards for that, or at least get the CoreBuilder in the mix with some Cisco gear. I hope you enjoyed this brief foray into ATM networking. I had a lot of fun hooking this gear up and playing around and just seeing what it could do. I hope you enjoyed following along, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. I've got a lot more of this ATM, enterprise gear, enterprise networking, mostly from the mid-90s to mid-2000s on the way. I'll see you in the next video.